Good morning, welcome everybody. This is the latest in a series of generative AI events that we've hosted across Europe, but the first one that we've done in the UK. It's great to see so many faces. There's a mix of clients, former clients, contacts, but there are also a few people that don't know Futurice particularly well. So Futurice digital transformation consultancy, there are about 800 of us and we are spread across 6 different countries. We've been around 23 years, quite a long time, so diverse business as well. We have experience across a range of different industries, but energy and automotive are sectors that we know very well and our experience runs pretty deep. So just in terms of how the business is structured, so there's 2 parts to it. There's the core business, and that's digital transformation services, typically into large businesses that need to modernize from a tech and business perspective. But we also have what we call a collection of family companies. So whereas Futurice is tech agnostic, we have relationships with most of the major cloud providers, and we have the ability to pick the right tools for the right job. Our family companies are specialists in particular areas, and they are spin-offs, so they've typically been founded by Futurice employees or people that we have brought into the group. You can see the names of the companies down there on the bottom left. So we have Columbia Road, they focus on e-commerce. Consulting services, we have Melt Lake, they focus on the Microsoft stack. And then we have Recordly, and these guys focus very much on hardcore data engineering and platform development. And as you can see, in terms of experience within energy and automotive, we've worked with a whole range of different companies. So that's it for the Futurice intro and the hard sell. If you want to know more about Futurice, of course, we can tell you much more at any given time. And the keynote is talking to you really about our generative AI journey. We're doing a lot of work in this space. It's clearly a fascinating field. There's a huge amount of possibilities. So we really want to share our learnings with you today. But they're also going to demo a bunch of live capabilities. We know from doing lots of these types of events that showing stuff tends to be a lot more valuable. So more showing, less telling effectively. So the demos that they're going to show you are things that we think will potentially be quite relevant, particularly within the fields of automotive and energy. You may wonder why we've chosen to work in these particular industries for today, or why we've invited people from these industries. A couple of reasons really. One, we know them well, we're well connected and we have quite a lot of experience, but also the increasing overlap between the 2 sectors. And of course, as we continue to decarbonise the mobility ecosystem, the kind of innovation at that intersection is only growing. The purpose of today, firstly, it's about learning. So it's about us sharing our learning with you. It's kind of part of the Futurice purpose is to really, experiment, learn, but also share that learning for impact. And we have a long history of doing that as an organisation. But it's not just about learning from us, it's about learning from each other. You're all doing different things in your respective organisations, and today is really a chance for you to kind of talk about that. And we want today to be kind of an open forum as well. So, let's say a safe space for people sharing their individual challenges. So Chatham House rules do apply. I think that's it for now. Without further ado, I will hand over.
Yeah, hey, Tuomas, long-time Futurice employee, one of the founders, 20-something years ago. And in these circumstances, I'm proud of also my training heritage, which is machine learning actually, from the late 90s. But it was, like I've been saying, it was horrible career choice in the late 90s. So I had to switch to the business side and start doing business development. And then I was also CEO for 10 years, like until 2018. But already then we started seeing the challenges with knowledge work. What do we know as a company? We are consultants, we are selling knowledge. And when we reached 300 people, 400 people, we came to the conclusion that we have no clue what we know anymore, which is a really bad customer promise. So we decided that let's go on a journey to rethink how can we use data and AI to, for example, automatically capture organizational knowledge. Now we are more understanding about the markets, we are calculating strategy execution on a weekly basis and so on. We will give some of these examples. And then of course the world changed roughly 1.5 years ago when the generative AI came. So all these initiatives became mainstream, and since the mainstream event happened, so we've been working extensively in different kind of generative AI, how to change the ways of working with generative AI. So on top of the day job, redesigning the ways of working and even coding again a bit in the evenings and weekends, I have some board seats in public and non-public companies. So 2 different kind of roles, very hands-on and helicopter perspective.
Yeah, I'm Jack. I'm leading the data and AI transformation offering globally at Futurice across our 6 countries. I think in practice that means taking a lot of wild ideas from Tuomas and trying to kind of turn them into scalable business. I've been trying to turn data and AI into impact in various guises for 15 years now. Firstly, I was in the world of online poker, so I was part of the first poker players turning poker AI research into like practical strategies that could be applied at the poker tables. And then I co-founded a startup, which was data and AI focused collaboration tools, so SaaS startup. That was me for 6 years. And then when the startup bit the dust, I decided I would start my own consultancy company around data and AI, how to change ways of working. And I went to my favorite client, which was Tuomas, to pitch to him that you can be my first client for this new consultancy. And I'm ashamed to say it only took him 1 hour to turn the tables around. And then I joined Futurice, and I've been here for 3 years now. Yeah, he's a better salesperson than me. So there we go. All right, introductions. Tuomas.
Yes. Hey, this is my favorite video. So you may recognize Mr. Adam Savage from Mythbusters. And why do I like this slide or little video? Because this is actually, unfortunately, a typical technology initiative. We take the latest and the greatest technology, in this case Boston Dynamics robot dog, and we put it in front of 100-year-old rickshaw. And means that we don't change anything around. We don't change processes, we don't change mindset, we don't change roles, we don't change those. And then we are wondering, why don't we get any results or any impact? And I think that that's something that we see quite often, is that in order to really get results, we actually need to change the ways of working or the processes. Technology enables it. But if we just bring technology to existing ways of working, we get Adam. And that's not working. If we think of like the other extreme, it's when we actually start challenging even the whole industry paradigms or trade-offs. We could talk a couple of hours about construction industry, sort of like making that more industrial assembly paradigm, and then the automotive, like changing the ways of between marketing, R&D, and production using data. But hey, this is not the topic today. We will talk more about more practical generative AI uses. So, but this is the backdrop. So we can, of course, do some great demos in the Adam space, but this is actually what we are going after. Generative AI, the first cases are reaching this level of sort of discussion, not the implementation yet, but they're reaching the first level of cases. But overall, what has happened during the past a little bit over a year, we've done 35 cases, 6 in production. That may not sound that much, but I have to be quite proud compared to the industry standard. That is typically 6 more than typical. There's a huge amount of POCs in the generative AI space, very little production stuff. And we've been able to push production ourselves, but also with our clients. And of course, a lot of POCs ongoing, a lot of in the pipeline. And then I think that what we also learned a little bit like accidentally is that doing live demos is probably the best way to actually make this more concrete and understandable and tangible, because it's quite fluffy otherwise. I will let Jack continue, and soon you will start seeing the demos.
Yeah, so first thing we're going to show you was 3 of the, I would say, more success stories where we're already got to production. And then after that, we'll go a little bit into the next frontier of kind of the things that are just emerging now. Yeah, so the first story I wanted to talk through is like how we can understand our customers better through data, and with that better understanding, how we can kind of rethink how we do product, service development, process optimization, and stuff like that. So yeah, this was maybe where we were sitting last summer or so. We were looking at all of these new tools, and we were thinking like, how can we leverage them to actually understand our customers better and create interesting content? So it was the UK team. We're looking at all of these car companion app reviews, 100,000 plus of them. And it's like, okay, maybe we can actually now use this data to find interesting insights that'll teach us more about our clients and provide good content marketing pieces. So the first step of what we did was very simple, really. We scraped the reviews from Android Store, Apple Store. We shoved them into Claude at the time because it had the biggest context window. And then we asked it to create summaries. We made it into pretty slides, and it was a nice content marketing piece that I think created a lot of buzz for us. It also, I think, taught us a few things that we kind of understood the problems that customers were having with these apps a little bit better. And then it kind of gave us a basis to go deeper with specific clients. So we had discussions where we then like went into the reviews in more detail for specific companies that wanted to know more. But this was where we were in July 2023. So since then, we've been really trying to think like, how can we use this sort of like unstructured text data to really like rethink how we work in production setting? So there's 2 demos that I wanted to show about that. The first one is, I would say, inspired by a production case that we have with a global airline. It's NDA case, so I can't actually share exactly all the details. But basically, the situation they were sitting with was they collect millions of different sorts of customer feedbacks every year across online reviews, survey entries, chat discussions, emails, customer service call transcripts. And it was really hard for them to leverage this data. It contained like huge amounts of information about what their customers really care about, the problems their customers are encountering, but like pretty much like underutilized. So first thing we do is, rather than looking at all of these reviews and getting very general insights, we can focus in on whatever area that we, as like say a product development team, are focused on. So maybe we are the team in charge of the remote control functionality in the car companion app. So now we've taken this like 56,000 reviews down to 5,000 reviews. And maybe you can imagine we're making our product roadmap for the next quarter, and we really want to understand, like, okay, what are customers saying about the remote control functionalities to inform that discussion. So the first thing we do is we use an old machine learning technique of clustering. And this is the sort of thing that I was sitting with a lot before LLMs, that we'd kind of do some data science, we'd get a pretty graph out like this, and everyone'd be like, this is cool, this is really interesting. And it'd be like, okay, what do we actually do with it? And it's like, what do the like blue ones mean? And yeah, we didn't really know. And then, okay, yeah, maybe we could try and make another model to do something like that, blah, 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 no impact. Now we can use our LLMs to actually get past this cool and interesting, and we can use the LLMs to label the different clusters, describe the clusters, extract representative reviews from the clusters. So this pretty graph turns into 6 different themes that have descriptions. We have some like metadata related to them. We can click and see the actual specific reviews related to each of them that the LLM's extracted as being like representative of that. So very quickly we can kind of orient ourselves, like these are the sorts of topics that our customers are talking about in relation to this. And then you can imagine we're in this meeting and someone's like, no, but the thing is like, I don't know, the remote charging functionality. Then we can also ask the LLM, like, what do the reviews say about remote charging?
While Jack is doing that, I have one technical detail. We are using semantic search, meaning that we are not looking for individual keywords, but we are looking for same meaning, so that it doesn't matter if somebody is using exactly the same word, as long as they're talking about the same topic. That's really important, sort of like technical detail to get proper results, because keywords, you miss a lot of stuff with keywords.
Yeah, so I think like this is probably not like great, this is not optimized in the demo at all, but this is inspired by a production solution where we spent a lot of time ensuring that the outputs are high quality. In the production solution, we're not just using one data source, I think it's like 4 different data sources that we first consolidate and then feed into something like this. So then the product development team in my scenario, they can basically be having a real-time discussion with their customers in the meeting. They don't have this like one report that comes maybe after the meeting, or if it's in time for the meeting, they're kind of stuck with that level of abstraction that the BI team has decided. They can actually go deeper, and if they're like, but what about this idea? Well, then let's like ask our customers about this idea. So yeah, I think this is like really consistent theme we're seeing across a lot of use cases of like, how can we better utilize this like unstructured, messy, noisy text data that we have lots of, but we don't know how to use. So that's one. The other one I wanted to show in relation to this, understanding our customers, is actually an example from healthcare, but I think it's very relevant to both automotive and energy as well. So the problem that we saw here is that basically the healthcare company have a mound of data on like the journeys that their customers are going through, but it's like not very well connected. They have some like tabular touch point data, analytics on that, but then they have the like customer service call transcripts. They don't really connect that to the like analytics of what the customer said in the customer service call. They have emails, they have all of the same unstructured text data. So the first thing we do with them is we combine all that data together with an LLM. So the LLM is really good at turning the unstructured data into structured data. So we have all different sorts of data sources here. We have appointment notes, we have calls, we have emails, and we've put them into one structured data table, which means they can be analyzed together. Then from that, we use the LLM to basically map the patient journeys that exist within this. So what it essentially does is we order them by timestamp and patient name, and then we look at the content of these different touch points. And the LLM can basically assess, okay, so from the data that we see on James Wilson, he has actually 2 different journeys. So one, he's talking about like asthma diagnosis and management. One's managing chest pain. The LLM can give us a quick summary of what that is. In reality, this would be a lot more detailed. And then we can kind of map that onto a timeline, which didn't open, unfortunately. When we show lots of demos, we're going to get demo effect. What that would show you is it kind of shows the different journeys. Then we highlight some of them in orange, where the LLM can detect that there's a churn risk. So basically, there's one angry email that James sends, an LLM saying, okay, you should probably be particularly attentive of James. And I think this works on the individual customer level, but it also works maybe much more impactfully on the macro level. So when we can understand these customer journeys, we can see where are the biggest churn risks, then we're more able to kind of proactively fix the problems that lead to customers leaving, that lead to customers reaching out.
And in this particular case also the problem is that the providers need to report the journeys, so they are manually actually doing this when they're reporting those journeys to insurance companies. So it's also a huge cost issue, not just a sort of customer value issue.
So from understanding our customers through data to customer service, we'll be quick here. We just have slideware for this one, no demos, so we'll go back to the demos soon. But yeah, this is a solution that we've been creating with 3 different clients now, which is basically AI assistants that help their customer service agents access the knowledge and information they need to answer customer inquiries more effectively. This is called a RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation solution, which is basically the de facto way to use the power of an LLM alongside your own data. So in one of the companies, I think the worst company we saw in terms of the starting point, the customer service agents had to look through 18 different sources to be able to answer the different sorts of customer inquiries. I think 6 of those were Excel sheets. So it was really inefficient process. It took minutes for them to just get the information needed for basic customer request. And this was a multifaceted problem. So it means they have inefficient customer service. They need to pay for a lot of customer service agents. It means they have low customer satisfaction. But I think the other really important part in customer service is that there's really high attrition of staff and slow onboarding times. And I think these really painful, we sat down with the customer service agents and it looked miserable looking through these outdated systems. So what we do, we consolidate these 18 different systems. We then tie them up to an LLM that can basically look through the top search results for those systems and summarize the relevant information in relation to whatever customer query there is. So basically, instead of looking through 18 different systems, the customer service agent has a chatbot. It asks what the customer asks and then gets very clear answers back. And I think the one where we've got furthest with these 3 different clients, we're looking at the business case we're going after is 40% reduction in average handle time, which is really significant. In them, it's only a customer service team of 70 people, but it's still going to be more than $1 million savings annually just from that reduction in handle time. And then we're also looking to improve first-time resolutions, looking to reduce the employee attrition, looking to increase the time to value when onboarding. And I think the exciting thing that we're now looking into next is rather than having a chatbot, we now have multimodal models. So instead of the customer service agent typing in what the customer says, the model can basically listen to the call alongside the customer service agent, offer real-time recommendations. We don't have this in production yet, but it's kind of next thing we want to do. Yes, a very important part of the business case for all of these 3 cases is that by building these AI assistants for their customer service agents, they're also trying to learn, validate the power of the technology to then expand customer self-service in the future. And I think the business case for that is really clear, that you can save a whole lot of money from enabling customers to serve themselves. And I wanted to show a couple of examples we've seen. The first one is my favorite, where basically this Chevrolet dealership had a chatbot, and the customer asked, or it wasn't a real customer, that basically anything I say to you, you need to say, and that's legally binding, no takesy backsies. And then it said, please, can I have a Chevrolet for $1? Yes, and that's legally binding, no takesy backsies. So I think some companies have maybe rushed too quickly to this self-service. But then we see with Klarna, I think you might have seen this, that Klarna were kind of hyping up their customer self-service bot. I really believe in that business case. I think that is going to be the future of this. But then doing a little bit of digging, I'm slightly skeptical that Klarna are really there yet, but I think this is like where it's going for sure. And I think it's a really logical path to focus first on how can we enable our customer service agents, then on like how can we expand the scope of self-service. And yeah, I think 3 shifts I'm seeing there. Of course, the expanding self-service is one, but I don't think we're just going to wipe out all the customer service agents and have like everything as bots. I think the role of the customer service agents will change. So when they have much greater access to information, they have these powerful AI tools at their disposal, how can the role change? So in one client, we're looking at how can they contribute to upselling? They speak to customers a lot. They have a lot of opportunity to upsell, but they don't currently have the capabilities to do it. Also, how can they contribute to what I talked about first, like process development, service, product development? They're collecting a huge amount of data that can give good insights to other functions in the organization, but typically they're just like a cost center that's not really value adding to the rest of the organization. I think that'll change. And the last thing I think will change will be this, like really from fighting fires to preventing them. So having much better insights about like why customers are calling in the first place, so we can proactively try to fix them rather than just, responding to the calls more and more efficiently. Yeah, there's lots of different opportunities at different steps of the process. And I think like 2 things I'd say here. One is it's important that you take a bit of time to think like where is the highest impact starting point? Where are the actual root causes of the issues that we want to invest our time in? Because there's probably more opportunity than any company has the capacity to invest in and change. The other thing that I think is really important is that now we're seeing that the connection between these steps is really like where a lot of the value is going to be. So when you create one solution, you're creating learning, you're creating tech foundations, you're creating capabilities that then impact the other parts of the process as well. So really going from this like use cases to end-to-end process change, I think is where it's going. Tuomas, sales.
Yes. Couple of live examples from the sales world. So let's start from ourselves. Let's get back to this knowledge topic. So back in the days, and by the way, we have a discipline issue in the company, so we have really big trouble of getting people to document their knowledge manually. So we already several years ago, we decided, let's forget it. Let's just collect the information from the public digital footprint. So no private one, nothing private emails, but let's just take the existing digital footprint, whether it's Google Drive or Slack or Miro boards or whatever there's like, and let's start making it happen. So I will get to the generative AI soon, but I will show the because this is already a couple of years that we're working. So if I, for example, and this is the system, this is a live system, where somebody was just so nice and gave us a blurred version, because otherwise it would expose all the customer stuff as well. But this is what our people use. If the consultancy world, customers ask that, have you done X? What the experience you have? Huge scrambling in Slack or somewhere that, hey, what have we really done? So now they can do slightly differently. So they can, for example, take, for example, data strategy. What happens before this one is, there's a lot of effort done by Jack and others in this kind of making sure that we actually have clean data set. We have documents which are drafts and drafts and finals. So we need to actually make sure that we just don't end up having like one document and 7 different versions shown. So we first we remove automatically the duplicates, then we actually add some metadata there automatically. So whatever happens, if I create a document today, I think it's tomorrow available for everybody in a sort of proper format. It's been analyzed what the document, is it a proposal, is it some other document, what is the metadata and so on. So if I now, for example, want to look at this proposal, it's a bit like e-commerce one, so we are also looking at the similar ones, because now that we calculate the distance, we can actually look at the similar ones and so on, other reasons. Fine. But then, already some time ago, we realized that people are not looking for actually typically documents. They're looking for individual pieces of information. So we took the abstraction level down to a page level. So now if you're looking for pages, again, we had to do this kind of removal of duplicates. But then actually what we realized that we can use the same technology to turn the tables around. Instead of removing duplicates, we can actually start observing what really happens in the organization. Because if there's a certain slide that people keep on copy-pasting, slightly adapting, we said it's the same. If it's a bit more adapted, we can say it's the same, but different, adapted. So we can actually now track organizational knowledge, how it's flowing from Finland to Germany or Germany to Finland or whatever that is. But more importantly, we can also start tracking, for example, organization strategy, execution. When I was a CEO, we had the very traditional way of tracking strategy, is that we make some bold goals, We set the initiatives, we hope for the best, and then maybe in 6 months or 12 months time we explain to the board that we haven't progressed. Now at least we know on a daily level or weekly level that we are not progressing. But when we actually know that we are not progressing or where we are progressing, we can actually start leading it. And this is one of the biggest sort of process changes that I've seen happen in almost every sort of like major transition, that we move towards real-time management. In real time, we start to see what happens outside, what happens inside. Then we increase the management or the cadence 10, 20 times in construction, from monthly management to daily management, in strategy execution, from biannual to weekly or monthly or whatever it is. And that brings results. It gives people feedback, it actually creates sort of like motivation, but it also gives leverage to the work. And by the way, we should never ever start from bossware. So meaning that we should never start from cases where we start just like having a big brother tools to see what happens in the organization. So first we need to start helping people to succeed with their work, like in this normal use case, and then actually people are okay with this kind of strategy execution stuff as well. Good, and then I can also look for people. But then what happened, of course, we put generative AI on top of it. And now instead of searching, you can ask. And again, it looks rather straightforward, and you can create a demo really easily. But actually making a proper this kind of system takes quite a lot of effort to make sure that we actually understand what the customer is asking for. Jack told a nice anecdote that we realized that in the early versions, people were asking for summaries. The only problem was that our system actually mistook that for searching for summary word. So suddenly it was trying to answer people that this is the summary instead of like summarizing. So we need to do quite a lot of understanding what people are searching for. We need to make sure that we pick the right content to answer this RAG model. So all the magic happens actually before we finally call the LLM to create the text. But this increased our weekly users by 3. So we had reasonably okay weekly user numbers with the old version of AutoCortex. With this one, it actually tripled. People are really now using the organizational knowledge. And there's been already examples, for example, here in the UK, that people have been writing sort of draft proposal, copy-pasting the questions, specific questions to the system, and seeing that which answers we have, and there are maybe 75% ready answers. So think about a situation of 50, 60 questions, draft proposal in half an hour versus like whatever, couple of days of doing it fully manually. Then of course, the finalization is needed. And this is also what is really much needed in the real cases, that we keep the citation so that you can actually go and check the source and so on. But hey, this has 2 fundamental problems. I'm quite proud of it. There's a lot of problems, but there's 2 fundamental problems here. Who can guess? We haven't had time or money to actually fix it or build it.
You end up locally optimizing around existing content.
That's one. But then there's 2 more.
There's 3 more. Just adding to the backlog.
GPT-4 has tendency of dreaming, so references might be made up occasionally.
That's possible, but actually with this RAG model, the hallucinations, we can reduce them significantly. Yeah. But think about the human behavior, or the human sort of like behavior, what we can, because currently, okay, the problem is this is reactive. We are still waiting for people to come and search. Because we actually have tested, and Jack have tested, and so we actually can deduct person knowledge needs from the person's digital footprint. So we could, if we would have a bit more money, create a system which tells you which knowledge you need, instead of waiting for people. And this is the future of knowledge work, that we are actually becoming proactive. We are proactively helping people to succeed with their work, instead of waiting reactively. The other one is, the context is now internal. So we are doing it manually, but we are doing a lot of data analysis of the markets through like patents, job listings, news, conferences, procurement data. Of course, the best case would be that we understand the market context or our customer context, and then we can automatically match what relevant knowledge or cases we have for the customer context. And we are doing it manually, but not automatically. So maybe in a couple of years' time, we have a system that actually can tell that there seems to be a change ongoing with the client. There might be relevant stories, relevant cases internally. And I think that is then turning around how we are using our knowledge to help our clients and helping our people to succeed. Or like I need to show you, this is, for example, by the way, this is generative AI related recruiting from the past year. And recruiting, I have to, like, job listings is the most honest data source out there. If we remove the first boilerplate and the last boilerplate, typically job listings is 100% truth in between. Every other data source that companies are releasing has some sort of noise. Annual reports is almost useless because that's more like a sort of like wishful discussion of what the company would like to be. But then this is real, so we can actually quite often we can see that if the company leadership is talking about certain topics, we check the job listings, and sometimes we find no trace of action, sometimes we find action that nobody's talking about, and then we can see, oh, there's something interesting happening. But for example, in this generative AI, think about the buzz in Q1. How many recruits? Not much recruiting. And so there's always the difference between, for example, the discussion and the buzz and real action. Now, of course, now it's much more healthy. And then we can go in deeper, seeing like what are the roles they're recruiting and all sorts of other information. Hey, finally, a little bit about this automatic configuration. So this is a complex engineering case. The bottleneck is that they had trouble of finding sales engineers, meaning the people who will listen to the client and create the solutions. So we created an AI system to create those solutions, and the results were really good. So they were cheaper to build, like lower carbon emissions, like smaller units and so on. So it unlocked their sort of growth. That's step number one. But even more interesting case is that we are already seeing the opportunity to start shifting the whole sales process to digital channel. So a traditional sales process which required a lot of like manual phone calls and other sales engineers to make happen. There's already a visible that we can actually start making a fully digital automated sales process for that company. And that would be quite a game changer in terms of productivity and growth and so on. Again, I want to remind you that technology is great, but the biggest impact when we rethink, for example, the whole sales process or how different organizational units collaborate between each other. Good. So we're already here in certain cases discussing how sales is connected to those. So where we are heading next? That's the current bread and butter. The next frontier that we are working is, for example, automatic content generation. And this is our own. So we are consultancy. Every single self-respecting consultancy wants to have market research, right? But it's quite laborious to do the market research. So what we actually exploring is, can we automate the market research? This report has been fully written by system, except the headline here. And by the way, I really like also the sense of humor because it's called Joe LL model, the author here. This is taking those job listings, because job listings, you remember, it's the most honest data source, and making a technology maturity assessment based on job listings. And what we've done is that we told the system how to interpret job listings to assess the maturity. So we can, for example, we can assess that if there's only one industry is hiring quantum computing, the maturity is low. If there are a lot of industries hiring quantum computing, the maturity is higher. If there are only research engineers being hired, the maturity is lower. If there are salespeople, marketing people hired, the maturity is higher. So there's lots of this kind of domain knowledge that we can embed into this, and then we can start writing these reports. Then we can actually change the technology behind it. It doesn't need to be quantum computing. It can be blockchain. It can be whatever. And the plan is to get to the situation that we can actually maybe on a weekly basis run new, insightful stuff with practically zero cost. But that's only step number one, because the actual goal for this year is to be able to create customer-specific reports with practically zero cost. Think about the typical consultancy approaches that we call and can we come and talk? What if we could actually immediately give something relevant insight that actually brings value immediately? So we are also trying to improve our own customer experience on the fairly early phases of the sort of the engagement, meaning that we could actually start building this engagement and trust already with the content, but with reasonable cost or low cost. The same we are hearing, for example, from private equity. Their sales channels are like years old. It's really high touch that they need to actually keep on talking to the potential target companies for years and years and years. The only way to build trust is human touch. So we're also looking there that can we actually use the same approach to build so relevant knowledge and insight to that company that actually it starts to build the relationship as well. The other area is alignment topics. Quick one. So organizational alignment. I don't know how is it with you, but many of our clients, there's a really annoying alignment process that like different departments, like whether it's in marketing or customer service or whatever, that they need to align their activities. It's a monthly meeting or quarterly meeting, or sometimes there's no meeting and then there's misalignment. But it's also quite difficult to take grip on it. But we can do it quite differently. So this is actually synthetic data, so nothing secret here. So we take like R&D, marketing department plan, and operations plan. Then maybe somebody's creating a new plan, like sustainability department. Now the question is, are these different plans aligned? Instead of doing it manually, We can ask these generative AI systems to evaluate it. So we are saying that we have now original plans, there's a new plan, please analyze whether the plans are aligned, explicitly misaligned or suspected misalignment. And then a few seconds later, we actually get reasonably good answers, or very good answers of the alignment. Think about the situation that if we could move from whether it's a monthly session to like on every Monday we get analysis, are the organizational units aligned? Or even better, we could tell immediately if I'm doing something that now what you're actually doing might conflict with somebody else's initiative. Or I get indication that now something is happening there that might conflict with my activities. And suddenly we can actually start helping like real-time alignment in the organization. We can do the same with customer service. We can immediately check, for example, is customer service experience aligned with the company policy? So we have like different kind of cases, like if we write a customer service policy like this, we can in real time, all the time analyze and help people to comply with the alignment. Or whether it's a legal alignment, like for example, we have contracts, different kind of contracts, we have project memos, we can immediately see if project memos are touching topics that actually are covered by the contracts. And we are moving this kind of compliance control processes to help people to succeed instead of like having an offline process or different kind of loops or waiting for those. And then finally, what we are going after is also a little bit on the techie side. Number one is this kind of agent-based approach. So instead of like doing these searches or getting access, we are actually already some first prototypes of how can we automate certain things so that we have a more complex task. We have several different focused agents and they're together completing the tasks. Would be a quite next level organizational productivity. And then technically also there's like more and more need for new data models as well. And that's why the knowledge graph is something that we've been working recently quite a lot with. So that how can we model the organizational knowledge much better? And how can we, whenever we analyze whether it's a tender or legal contract, how can we use that analysis to build the whole company organizational sort of knowledge structure? Knowledge graph seem to be a very good option there. But this is like going a bit towards the future.
All right. So, seen lots of examples, but how to actually get going or go faster if you're already going. Few things here that I think may be very basic advice, but this is generally the journey that we've seen. I think the first thing is you need to keep pace by using the tools that are available to everyone. Your co-pilots, your ChatGPTs, everyone has access to these. And if you're not learning how to actually provide value to your day-to-day work with them, then I think you're falling behind. These tools are quite far from a lot of people's existing habits. Like people aren't exactly used to, speaking to an AI agent as they do their day-to-day work. So I think it really takes at an individual level you to be proactive and build a new habit. One advice I got from one of our data scientists just after ChatGPT launched, he was like, "This is the thing, it's changing the world." And I was like, yeah. And he was like, "What I do, I always have ChatGPT window open. Every time I open a browser, I have the window open. I have, at the time, the Bing chat, which is now Copilot, open. And just trying, every time he has a task, stopping a minute, thinking, could I use this for enabling me to do this task better? And like a lot of things you'll find like, the result's not very good. But then some things you'd be like, wow, like that is actually really good. I'm using ChatGPT. I'm using like Copilot, search, web browsing every single day. And it's not that it's writing all my proposals for me and doing my work that I used to do, and like that I just automate everything. Not at all, but it's like helping me every step of the way. It's kind of this like sparring partner. During meetings, like I'm often working with a lot of like really techie people. I'm a little bit techie, but people think I'm more techie than I am. And the amount of times where someone mentions a term that I'm like, I should really know what that means, just ask ChatGPT on the side. It gives me like really good response and I can look like a little bit less dumb in the meeting. After that step, that's step 0, I would say. Then I think step 1 is really, what are the first use cases we could explore to elevate our existing processes? So typically, we're talking about cost efficiency, process optimization use cases. We're talking about users being internal, humans still being in a loop. We're not trying to fully automate anything, and focused on helping frontline people succeed. And the reason we're talking about these elements is because this is a change project. You need to really think about it in that way. You need to start with safe areas where you can get wins on the board and you can get people on side. You can get the buy-in to do more and more later on the line. But I think another risk we've seen with these first use cases is some clients are kind of tempted to go into nice-to-have areas. This is new. unknown, let's just put it in a nice to have bucket, I think that's also a big mistake. So I think you need to start somewhere safe, but you need to be moving in the direction of somewhere really high impact. And then I think the third thing that Tuomas was talking about a lot is like, this is where the real value is. Like, how can we redesign our processes end to end? What new offerings might we create? And I don't think you can go straight there if you're not yourself getting familiarity of what these tools can do for personal productivity. If you're not elevating your existing processes and starting getting cracking, exploring use cases, then I don't think these opportunities for getting real competitive advantage are going to just like fall into your head. I think you need to kind of learn by doing, get your hands dirty, and then those opportunities will come up. The journey, this is us mapping the typical steps that we've seen. It's a really messy one. Don't worry, we're not going to go into this slide. But this is something that we've really been thinking. What are the things you need to do to succeed? One of the things of like elevating existing programs. You don't want to try and create a whole new budget and a whole new program just for AI. How can we actually use AI to elevate something that's already ongoing? But yeah, rather than going through this, we extracted 7 critical success factors to get business value from AI. And I think these are the main things that we've seen that clients have been tripping themselves up with or having challenges with.
So I think the first is make the opportunity tangible, typically POC, something that people can actually see and use, because that makes people understand so much better. I think the POC is two purposes. One is to test technically, but also communicate internally what is possible. Then I would say that it needs to be relevant domain, whether it's a sales domain or customers or whatever is relevant for the organization. But then also the KPI. What is the change? And the KPI is typically to communicate the level of change, like 4 weeks to 1 day, or like from several minutes of searching information to seconds of searching information, whatever the KPI is. But I think the KPI is a really important one, what to aim for, because that actually helps everybody tune into what is the level of change that we are going after. And also quite often it differentiates from the traditional toolbox, what we can do. Organizational bandwidth, yes, it is both monetary bandwidth but also the mental bandwidth. And that's why also finding the existing program to actually elevate is a good one to start, because trying to create a new program to really change processes, it takes a lot of bandwidth internally, mental and monetary. So the best cases are take the existing one. Or then there's a really burning problem that hasn't been solved before. People. We need 2 types of people. We need the senior business person sponsorship, but that's not enough. Then we also need somebody who really wants to make change happen on the front line. If there's a person who just has given that okay, do something with it, it doesn't work, because we need people who actually really want to make the change happen. And then, of course, we need the basic IT capabilities and commitment to support. But as you can see, what we learned, the technology is not typically the biggest bottleneck. It's the kind of the organizational setting. POCs is rather easy, and there the technology might be the bottleneck. But then moving actually real production implementation, it's everything else. Good. That's end of our story, and maybe the conclusion that don't be Adam. Don't just take the existing technology and put it into existing ways of working. Change also something in the ways of working, whether it's this kind of massive reduction of cycle time or increasing the clock speed or real-time management through customer insight and so on. But that also leads that this is a human issue in addition to the technical challenges.